Hello, everyone. This is Matt Carvalho, and with me I have Senator NesselBush. Thank you for being here with me today. Well, my first question is, what is it that made you want to get into politics?
Well, I was one of those people who was always fairly opinionated, and each day, before 7 a.m., I would read not one but two newspapers. And as I read the newspapers, I would always say, "This is crazy. There ought to be a law. How can people think like this? Why are we doing this?" And so I began to develop an interest in the public discourse of our day and public policy issues. And one day, the 36-year sitting senator from the District 15 that I represent, so he had been there for 36 years, so that seat was never open. But one day, he indicated that he was no longer going to run for office, and I immediately knew that I wanted to succeed him and at least wanted to try. And so I figured I would take all of those strong opinions that I had reading the newspaper with a cup of coffee up here to the State House to see if I couldn't have my voice heard up here.
And do you think you've done a good job thus far, having your voice heard here?
I do. I think I speak out on the issues that I care about. I'm a strong advocate for the issues that I care about. I was very proud to be the prime sponsor of the marriage equality bill that passed in 2013. We worked very hard for that. Was working on that bill since before I was a senator. And so, I've been pleased to sponsor many domestic violence bills, bills in favor of workers and workers' rights. And so I sort of am always on the side of the underdog, and I like to try to help people. So, yes.
All right. Well, my next question is, what are your thoughts on Governor Raimondo with her plan to raise money for DACA?
I think DACA is an important stopgap measure that the former president, President Obama, has put into place because our national government fails to act. Congress has, in my opinion, completely failed the immigrants living in this country, and Congress has not been able to achieve meaningful immigration reform, and therefore 11, 12 million undocumented people are left without a path to citizenship, without clear advice, clear information about what is going to happen with the pressing immigration issues of our time. And so I was a supporter of President Obama's DACA. Basically, that's the Dreamers, children who have come here through no fault of their own. They were brought here as children, and there are certain requirements that are good requirements, such as being in college or wanting to go to college, serving in our military, all very good and admirable and laudable things. And so I applaud the governor for her efforts in this regard. And I think that now is the time to make your voice heard with Congress so that hopefully whether Congress does meaningful immigration reform or at least grapples with DACA, that would be good. And in the meantime, that may place a burden on us states to see what, if anything, we can do to support the children of immigrants living in our state that would otherwise be affected by DACA. So yes, I think it's great what she's doing, and I'll do anything I can to help her with that measure because too many people need that kind of help, and the dreamers should continue to dream.
And do you think her plan is going to work?
Do I think it's going to work? I don't have a crystal ball, but I think a small group of committed people can make great change and make themselves heard. So I'm going to support it, and I'm going to believe that it can work and do everything I can to see that it does work.
All right. Well, my next question is a little different. What are your thoughts on fellow Senator James Doyle going back to court?
For that the case where he owed that woman money?
Yes.
Our court system is open to all, and none of us is above the law. I don't actually know too many of the details about that case, but obviously, as I said, nobody is above the law. If anybody owes somebody money, they should pay that debt, and if the court has established that debt, everybody, senators included, has to live by the rule of the court. And so I believe that the court has decided that he owes that money, and therefore, as a lawyer believing in the rule of law, I think Senator Doyle will have to make arrangements to pay that money.
All right. What is it that you and fellow senators can do to keep the Paw Sox here in Rhode Island, hopefully Pawtucket, but at least Rhode Island?
Well, I think we need to keep the Paw Sox not just in Rhode Island, but most definitely in Pawtucket. And what we can do is craft a deal that is good for the taxpayers and that doesn't expose the taxpayers to unreasonable risk. Anything our state does for economic development, there is an inherent amount of risk. We offer a certain number of tax credits for the film industry. We offer tax credits for those who redo mill buildings because the mill buildings are a blight. So there is taxpayer money that goes into economic development projects. Now, we don't have a crystal ball with these projects. Not all of them work. But we will properly vet the Paw Sox Stadium proposal, and I'm confident that my colleagues and I will make sure that the numbers that are presented create only a reasonable amount of risk for the taxpayers, and that the odds are that the state will not pay a penny, that all of the money that they invest will be paid back, and the same thing for the city. But you know, Pawtucket needs to move forward. We have a great revolution and evolution going on in the city of Pawtucket, and sometimes you have to make some bold moves in order to spur economic development. And I believe that the vibe of the Paw Sox Stadium and the expertise of that team and those owners will actually be enough and spur economic development. And I believe that the state will be made whole, and it will be either revenue neutral or revenue positive. Same thing with the city. It will either be revenue neutral or revenue positive. And in fact, it needs to be revenue positive, because right now the state is facing a budget shortfall of over $200 million. $200 million. That's a lot of money. And when you are short $200 million, you can't afford to lose even another million. And so we in Pawtucket who are working on this proposal, you know, we are seeking and aiming and promising to put together a winning proposal that is actually going to be revenue positive for the taxpayers, and then we all get to enjoy the iconic Pawtucket Red Sox right in their hometown of Pawtucket into the future, so that future children can have the same memories that today's children and yesterday's children, frankly. You know, the Paw Sox have been in Pawtucket for over 75 years, and it is my hope that we can keep them for another 75 years.
Now, it doesn't look like they'll be staying at McCoy. Would you also be in support at the idea of Apex, or do you have any other?
No, I do support the Apex Stadium proposal. And as you said, you know, McCoy Stadium just seems to, it would cost more money to rehab McCoy Stadium than it would to build them a new stadium. So clearly that makes no sense, especially when all the infrastructure around Route 95 is much better suited around the Apex area for a baseball stadium than dragging cars all the way down the two-lane highway of Division Street, where the only way you can do economic development around the current stadium is if people lose their homes.
All right. Well, my next question is, now we were both there when Governor Raimondo signed the bill to ban conversion therapy for minors. I wanted to know what were your thoughts going through that when she signed the bill.
I was very proud that Rhode Island joined one of the early states, if you will. There were different numbers given. Some said that we were the 8th state or the 10th state. But anyway, you look at that, we are in the forefront of standing up and saying that anyone's gender identity or sexual orientation, however they choose it to be, is perfectly wonderful and normal. And that we do not need to be in the business of trying to convert youth. In fact, it's been proven that it doesn't work. And so why would we be wasting time and effort on something that doesn't work, and something that just contributes typically to gay, lesbian, transgender children feeling badly about themselves? And all of the testimony showed that such conversion therapy, as I said, not only doesn't work, but causes harm, increases the suicide risk, and then requires people to go years in additional therapy to try to undo the harms caused by conversion therapy. So I was pleased to join the governor in signing that, in that signing ceremony. and to join with my wonderful colleague in the House, Representative Edie Agello, in standing up and making Rhode Island be in the avant-garde and forefront of the efforts to ban conversion therapy throughout the country.
Well, my next question is, what were your thoughts on the appointments today with the judges?
I think the governor did a great job. She appointed some fine judges. I know all of them, and I think they were, good lawyers in coming from some different walks of life. I was especially happy to see Melissa Long, who comes with a little different background than we often see around here in terms of she was not necessarily just a practicing lawyer in our court system. I know her parents, I believe, were in the military service. She had lived out of the country. And I think living out of the country is a very valued and valuable experience. Getting to know the diversity that is our world helps know the diversity that is Rhode Island. Additionally, she has a plethora of government service from the Department of Transportation to the Secretary of State's office. And government is an important part of our society, and so that is indeed equally valuable service. And lastly, as I said both in committee and on the floor, I think that in our diversity here in Rhode Island lies our strength, and our judiciary, as wonderful and competent and good as it is, it lacks the diversity that in fact reflects our state. It's largely an Anglo-white judiciary, and I think we owe it to society to make sure to try and find qualified candidates of color. And I think the governor with this one has hit a home run. Ms. Long is smart, she's competent, she's hardworking, and I think she'll make a great jurist and will add to the tapestry and the diversity that makes our state great.